Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi, welcome back with me, Dalilatul Khasanah. Today I will explain about syntax. Do you know what is syntax? Syntax can be defined as a set of rules, principles, and processes that preside over the structuring of sentence in any given language. Syntax defines the rules that need to be followed when forming a sentence, from words, clauses, punctuation, and phrase. In here, I will talk two parts of syntax, sentence structure and tree diagram. So let's start with the first, sentence structure. What is sentence? Sentence is a set of words that is complete in itself and generally contains a subject and main verb. A sentence also contains a correct punctuation. Clause is a group of words that contain subject and a verb. I need two types of clause. First is independent clauses. That is type of clause that makes sense on its own as a sentence. And the second is dependent clause. Type of clause that does not make sense on its own as a sentence. And now let's move to types of sentence structure. First is simple sentence. Simple sentence contains one independent clause. It contains a subject and verb. For example, the baby laughed. She brushes her teeth in the morning. And the second type is compound sentence. Compound sentence contains two independent clauses and are linked by coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunction can include fun voice, for, and, nor, but, yet, or, and so. For example, she brushes her teeth in the morning, so her teeth are nice and clean. Here we can see the sentence without the coordinating conjunction. We have two independent clauses that each make sense on their own as a spirit sentence. And another example is the baby laughed at the cartoon and he played with his toys. It's important to know that we use commas before the coordinating conjunction. And for the third types is complex sentence. Complex sentence contain one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Dependent clauses are linked by either a subordinate conjunction. For example, although, after, because, since, when, etc. Or a relative pronouns, for example, like who, which, that, and etc. Here is the example of complex sentence. She brushes her teeth in the morning after waking up. As you can see, we have our independent clause which can make sense on its own as a separate sentence. And then the dependent which is after waking up, this would not make sense on its own as a sentence. And for another example is the baby laughed because the cartoon was funny. I cannot wait to meet everyone at the reunion dinner, which is tomorrow. The last example shows you a relative clause with a relative pronoun which. It's important to know that we have used a comma when the dependent clause comes the first. But if the sentence begins with independent clause followed by dependence, we didn't use comma. And for the last type is compound complex sentence. Compound complex sentence contains two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses that is linked with a coordinating conjunction. For example, I woke up in the morning and I brushed my teeth even though everyone else was sleeping. Here we can see the dependent and independent clauses. Well, now let's talk about tree diagram. How to draw a simple sentence trees? Let us first take a look into what we would need for such a tree. When we draw a tree diagrams, we classify pieces of the sentence into these four groups: verb phrase, noun phrase, preposition phrase, and adjective phrase. Of these, verb phrase and noun phrase are the most important ones, because a complete sentence has to have these two phrases in order to be a complete sentence. With that said, let's take a look at the first example.
The syntactician got gonorrhea. The very first thing we do is determine the part of speech in this sentence. The is a determiner, syntactician is a noun, cat is a verb, and gonorrhea is a noun. Now we can start grouping. The and syntactician form a noun phrase. Since gonorrhea is a noun phrase as well. Now only cat is left, and that is a verb belonging to a verb group. Together with the noun phrase gonorrhea, the verb group established to the verb phrase. Now we connect noun phrase and verb phrase, and we are done. One more example. She was sitting in a boat. Just like the first example, let's determine the part of speech first. She is a pronoun. Was is an auxiliary verb. Sitting is an inflected verb. In is a preposition. A is a determiner, and a boat is noun. And now the tree. As pronoun function to replace noun, she is the first noun phrase. Was sitting is the verb group of the sentence. And the next word in already announced that there is going to be a prepositional phrase in the sentence. A and boat are left now. They are noun phrase which is integrated into the prepositional phrase. The verb group and the prepositional phrase constitute the verb phrase. And after connecting noun phrase and a verb phrase, the tree is done.
Learning syntax is fun, right? I hope you can learn something useful about syntax based on my explanation. And you have critiques or suggestions, you can write down in the comment box. I'm Dalilatul Khasanah. See you next time, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.